6:30 on the dot. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Connect and Elect. I hope you guys can see me now. My video went out for a quick moment, but we want to welcome you to the Meet the Candidate series. And we are so excited to have 3 different races represented here tonight. My name is Suzette Speaks. I will be your moderator, and we are going to be talking to some very interesting candidates who are going to tell us where they stand on the issues. If you are watching the replay, please do like, comment, and share. Our candidates are going to go back and see what the comments were, and hopefully they'll respond to you, because you, the public, deserve to be informed, and this is what makes our democracy work, of course. So if you've never been a part of our series, the Connect and Elect series is Meet the Candidates, a series that has 4 different candidate forums this year, 2020, all June. This is the second one, where we'll be introducing the clerk of the court, the public defender, as well as the state attorneys. And again, all candidates who qualified were invited, and we're showing you tonight all the candidates that accepted our invitation. So Connect and Elect is brought to you by 2 powerful organizations, the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, specifically the Coral Springs chapter, which is the Chi Psi Omega chapter, and the Pompano Beach chapter, which is the Kappa Kappa Omega chapter, along with the North Broward Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So we're very grateful to be back for another year. We've been doing this a while, folks, so we've taken it to Zoom this year, and we hope you enjoy and get to know the candidates. If you don't know much about these organizations, historically Black sororities have always had a history of being civically minded and wanting to serve the community in any way they could. Both organizations, AKA and DST, are over 100 years old. Their combined chapters in Broward County include chapters in Parkland, Coral Springs, Coconut Creek, Tamarack, Lauderhill, Margate, as well as Pompano Beach, Deerfield, and parts of Fort Lauderdale. So we salute the ladies behind the Connect and Elect series. So we are going to jump right in because we have several candidates whom we want you to meet tonight. We're going to start with the clerk of the court. This is our first race, and we're going to state first the rules, and then we're going to jump right into the questions without further ado. So each candidate is going to start with an open. This particular race, we're going to allow 2-minute open. All other races will have 3-minute because this is a smaller group. We'll also allow 30-second rebuttals, right? So after your 2-minute open, any question will be then given 1 60-second period to the person with whom I'm asking the question and to whom I'm asking the question. And then after that, a 30-second rebuttal to any candidate that would like to respond. So the questions have been predetermined both by our committee as well as the community at large. We will take questions from the audience, so please do drop your questions in the comments. We want to see what you're talking about and what your concerns are. It's so important that we hear from you. So again, we have selected the order at random. We have the 3 candidates with us tonight. They are Mr. Mark Spicer, and along with Miss Brenda Foreman, and also Mr. Paul Bachman. So we're very excited to have the 3 of you here tonight. You'll see on your screen now some facts about the clerk of the court. Now, some of you out there may not be as familiar. Maybe you haven't had to venture downtown in Fort Lauderdale to use the court system, but this is a very, very pivotal office. As you can see on your screen, it helps the 1.9 million residents of Broward County to handle court cases, and in every sense of the word, from filing to scheduling hearings, you name it, minutes taking, as well as making sure court documents are correct and filed correctly. It's super important and a very vital part of our judicial system. So without further ado, let's have the introductions of our candidates. We're going to start with Mr. Mark Spicer, and in your introduction, again, you have 2 minutes. You can give us your name, of course. Please describe any of your experience. We want to get to know you, and of course, we want our audience, thank you for joining, to get to know you as well. You can describe why you're running for office. Of course, you can tell us a little bit about your leadership ability and why and how you might structure the clerk of the court a little different if you'd like. And maybe throw in there how you're going to distinguish yourself from your opponents. So we're getting to know, again, first round, first up will be the court of the clerk. candidates, clerk report, candidates for Broward County. All right, Mr. Spicer, you have the floor first. You have 2 minutes.
Your electricity is contagious, Suzette. I have to tell you, I'm really high already just listening to you.
Thank you, sir.
First of all, thank you very much. This is the second night in a row that the three of us have been in front of an organization, each of which is 100 years old. So it makes me feel very young, I have to tell you that. So who is Mark Spicer? The past is a great barometer of the future success of any particular individual for any particular office. Now, my first instance where I served in a leadership capacity was I was senior staff counsel for the House Select Committee on Assassinations. We investigated the assassination of King and Kennedy. And I served on the King subcommittee, and I headed up a staff of attorneys, research assistants, and investigators for over a year and a half that conducted a congressional investigation into the assassination of Martin Luther King. Then when I came down to Florida, I was hired by the Broward State Attorney's Office, and there I continued my tenure in a leadership position, having served as a narcotics prosecutor in the heyday of drug crime in Florida. After working there for 3.5 years, I was elected a circuit court judge. I was actually the youngest elected circuit court judge in the state of Florida at the time, at the ripe young age of 36. And so what I did while I was a circuit court judge is I served not just in one division, I served in many divisions, which afforded me an opportunity to see the multifaceted aspect and operations of the clerk's office. I started off handling juvenile delinquency cases and juvenile dependency cases. Thereafter, I moved into the criminal division, where I sat for approximately 16 years. And while in the criminal division, the then chief judge appointed me as the administrative chief of the criminal division, in which capacity I served as 6 years. Thereafter, I went into the probate division, where I served for approximately 16 years, and I served as the administrative chief judge of that division. So I have had a number of leadership roles, which I think is very, very important. Another facet of this position that we're seeking is that you need someone who's innovative, and that is really something I'm very proud of. I created.
Time.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you. I know it goes by quickly. Thank you very much, Mr. Spicer. We're going to go next to Ms. Brenda Foreman. 2 minutes, ma'am. I can't hear you. You have to unmute, please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this platform. I pray that you and your families are safe during this pandemic of the unknown COVID-19. I am honored to serve as the Broward County Clerks of Court for the last 4 years and looking forward to serving Broward County for another 4+ years. I know what works and I have more insight on what it takes to get the job done. My role as your current Clerk of Courts has and will continue to be a facilitator among all stakeholders within the court system. We're all in this together. I am a licensed realtor for 16 years. From 2005 to 2009, before the market crash, I own my own mortgage company. Knowing how to run a business and a company has always been a part of my DNA. I attended and studied at Broward College and Union Institute. I am a Florida Supreme Court certified clerk of courts for Broward County, in which upon becoming a new clerk, each clerk would need to have completed 280 hours of education to be certified. Since being sworn in January 3rd, 2017, I have made significant changes and much needed improvements to the clerk's office, including technology, upgrades, and artificial intelligence, so that our services are more accessible to the public. I upgraded technology.
I was getting confused. Yeah, no problem. Dropping off. Okay, bye.
What happened?
That's okay. You can have 10 seconds more. We ask that everyone coming on mute yourselves if you're not recognized. And you can finish your last statement there, Ms. Foreman.
Okay, thank you. We have upgraded technologies. We have where you can pay your fees and fines and collections through AMSCOT. I spearheaded a community outreach program that allows my office to donate thousands of dollars to local charities, and that is not clerk dollars. My goal as clerk of courts is to continue to deliver superior services to my customers by providing quality record keeping. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but most certainly not least, for his 2-minute introduction, we welcome Mr. Paul Bachman.
First of all, I thank you very much for the invitation. I mirror what Ms. Foreman just said in terms of being safe and healthy during this extraordinary time. As I said, my name is Paul Bachman. I'll cut to the chase. I'm a lawyer. I can't say hello in 20 minutes, let alone speak. But I grew up in New York, moved down here after law school, and I had the opportunity to participate in community activities from the very beginning. I had the opportunity to form what is now the largest synagogue in Southwest Broward with 3 other families. I had the opportunity to work with community leaders as the lawyer and the person that had the ability to get funds to create the first senior citizen ALF in Broward County in Deerfield. Now, in terms of management, budget, and supervision, I've had the opportunity to chair an international convention in the old city of Jerusalem involving more than 150,000 people who didn't all participate, but they were all within the context of what I had to deal with. I had a budget, I brought it in under budget. And you can imagine when you're dealing with a significant number from the United States and all around the world, it takes an awful lot of money to do that. So I've got that management. I've been a leader in almost every organization that I've been on. I went on the bench as a county judge in 1985. I was elevated in 93 to the circuit court bench. I also served as the administrative judge following Judge Spicer when he moved to probate. I served for 8 years, pretty much under the same leadership of the clerk, of the courts. Wow, 10 seconds. I guess I'm going to have to wait, but it's what distinguishes me from my opponents? I'm better looking and I'm better qualified.
All right, sir. We'll leave that to our guests and our audience to decide. And we're going to move into our question and answer once again. In that same order, I'm going to ask you a question. You'll have 1 minute to respond. And any person who would like a 30-second rebuttal may have one. All right. So the first question goes to then Mr. Mark Spicer. And that question reads, there appears to be a disparate rate of pay within the clerk of court office. There are purportedly individuals in positions making $80,000 to $100,000 per year with no college degree, while there are employees with advanced degrees earning less money. Will you look into compensating employees who have obtained degrees in an effort to further their professional development in the area in which they are employed? Let's talk a little bit about pay disparity. What would you say to that, Mr. Spicer?
Yes, it's incredible. I just wrote a letter to the Broward County Bar. They asked each of the candidates to write a letter. One of the first points that I made in that letter is, in fact, the disparity in the pay between the line entry-level clerks, deputy clerks who are working in that office, vis-a-vis the administration. So what I proposed is that if I were elected the clerk of the court, that I would immediately, among other things, look at the pay levels of the people that are in administrative positions. Some of them may be worth it, but many of them, I suspect, are not worth the pay that they're getting with respect to the responsibilities that they are exercising. I'm also very concerned that the lower level pay that is given to the entry level deputy clerks is embarrassingly low. It's embarrassing low. The prospects of promotion are very slim and the exception rather than rule. People seem to be getting in higher positions that are hired from the outside rather than promoting from the inside. So it's a great concern to me, and I think it's very troubling for the employees because it causes them to lose their motivation to affect the quality of their output. So the pay has to be reevaluated, and to the extent possible, I would pay the entry-level clerks who come in and work in the clerk's office a lot more than they're making right now.
Do we have any rebuttals?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms.
The
Norman.
pay scale, the pay rate, as Mr. Spicer just mentioned, is untrue. I do not hire people from the outside and pay them more money than the ones that's on the inside. The ones that are getting paid $80-some thousand has already been there longer before I even came into office. So those people have degrees, master degrees, CFOs, master degrees in HR, master degrees in your CTD department. So these people been there forever and a day. So why would I adjust their payment when they have that type of degrees behind them? And as far as the money that we have to pay everyone, it's governed by the state. Once again, those fees, I'm sorry.
You have 30-second rebuttals. Would you like a rebuttal, Mr. Backman?
Do I get to answer the same question?
You get 30 seconds rebuttal.
Oh, okay. First of all, for a $37 million budget for 800 employees, where I believe there are about 100 openings right now, that money only goes so far. The disparity with respect to the salaries is pitiful. We bring data terminal operators in, we pay them a pittance, they get educated, and they go out and get higher paying jobs. The reevaluation of staff is one where we have to look from the beginning. Until you get into that seat and reevaluate all the employees, see who produces, who doesn't produce. I just lost the connection, I think. Am I still here?
No, you can,
Oh, okay,
she just put up the facts with regards to what you're talking about.
Gotcha.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You have
I
about 15
apologize.
seconds.
I apologize. It all has to be reevaluated. I agree with Judge Spicer. There might be a disparate. There's no question that it's disparate. But again, you have to reorganize and you have to make sure that the people in the positions are the right people to serve. Don't hear you. If you can hear me, I don't hear you.
Don't hear you.
Ah, there we go.
Don't hear you, Suzette.
Thank you. I was talking to myself there once again. Visiting the clerk's office can be a very daunting task for people not familiar with the court system. How can you make the clerk's office more user-friendly for people not represented by lawyers? How do you make the public's visit to the courthouse a positive experience? Go ahead, Ms. Foreman.
Okay, those who do not have an attorney, we do have a pro se department that is on the second floor. So when those people come in, and because the clerk's office, we are not attorneys and we cannot give advice to those people, we send them to the second floor, and it's 211 that comes in that helps them out to fill out their forms and their paperwork. So that is something that we started. We went aboard and above and beyond to make sure that these people have the help that they need. So in order to improve that, 211 will have to improve it, or court administration when it comes to the management side of it. They're the ones who help all of those people whenever they come in and they need an attorney. So the pro se department is there for them.
Thank you. Do we have any rebuttals?
Yes, I do. I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Spicer.
There are many services that the clerk offers to individuals who come in attempting to secure them without the representation of an attorney. There is no reason why these people can't be advised before they come in through handing out brochures, making brochures available throughout the country, describing what information, what data is needed for them to succeed in getting what they need from the clerk's office without making that one trip turn into 2 or 3 trips. Also, there's no reason why the clerk's office can't have a computer program that is set up for each particular service offered by the clerk's office. People go in there for petitions for restraining orders.
That's time.
Thank you.
That's time. All right. Do we have any other rebuttals, Mr. Backman?
I would like to
Go ahead.
join
You have
in
30 seconds.
I think I might be able to do it. I have a very different perspective on how to make it more user-friendly. In COVID, we've learned that we can do things that we never thought we could and would do again. I think the clerk's office can become user-friendly by virtue of technology, where people don't have to come down to the courtroom until it's absolutely necessary. And I also think that the hiring of some first-year lawyers and individuals who are in their 3rd year interning would be a great help to help those that are unrepresented.
That's time. Thank you very much. All right, to you, Mr. Backman. Your question is, the Brennan Center for Justice states that Florida relies heavily on fees to underwrite its criminal justice system, and at times uses monies generated by fees to subsidize general revenue. In many cases, the debts are uncollectible, and performance standards for Court of Clerks, for example, expect that 9% of fees levied in felony cases will be collected, a total of 9. Yet, aggressive collection practices result in a range of collateral consequences. Missed payments produce more fees. Unpaid costs prompt the suspension of driving privileges and related ability to work, etc. How do you, as a clerk, balance a person's inability to pay with aggressive collection tactics? Have you considered a traffic fee diversion program or any other solution? Go ahead, Mr. Bachman.
First of all, I think aggressive collection doesn't result in anything significant. Diversion program, I think that's absolutely critical. There are some that as soon as your license is suspended, you get the ticket, as long as it's for not paying tickets as opposed to DUI or other suspensions. There's a program where they help you get your D6 back immediately. They put you on a payment plan, and as long as you comply, you don't have any problems. Now, the issue is funding. And all the funding comes from the fees and the costs and everything else that comes into the clerk's office, which gets sent to Tallahassee. Tallahassee has a habit of doing what we call sweeping funds. In other words, the clerk's funds are supposed to be dedicated trust funds, but when the legislature wants to find extra money, they just go and they sweep what they want, which leaves the clerk's office, the state attorney, and every other entity short in terms of their finances. That has to stop. That's a legislative matter, and that's one that I would work very hard on.
So it sounds like you might be trying to reform the fee structure as it is. Do we have any other rebuttals?
Is set by statute.
Yes,
Okay.
as a rebuttal.
The
laws have to change in order for anything to happen for the clerk's office. There are 67 counties that are collectively together that get these funds. So in order to change certain things, everybody want to go to Tallahassee and do this and do that and whatever the case may be. But until the laws are changed,
your hands.
if nothing can be done, nothing seriously can be done until those laws are changed. And we have to be, as far as the clerk's office is concerned, we have to follow those statutory constitutional duties.
You have 5 seconds. I'm going to go to Mr. Spicer next. Is there any leeway that you have in terms of collection tactics?
Well, let me answer that two ways if I can. Number one, as a judge, you have no discretion but to impose the fines that the statute requires. Unfortunately, the legislature doesn't take into account that you can't get blood from a stone. Most of these people that are in front of the court who commit crimes and plead guilty or found guilty by a jury, they don't have the ability when they get out of prison to pay these fines. And so the judge doesn't have that discretion. But what the judge should be able to do, if the legislature gives us that discretion, is to order these individuals to perform community service. It will help the community. And getting collection, it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult. I can't blame the clerk's office for its inability to collect fees that are owed, because it's almost an impossible undertaking.
Time. Thank you. You have the next question. Then we're going to go to Mr. Spicer. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, there have been Zoom court hearings and in some cases even evidence taken via portal. Electronic court orders have also been signed. Has the viral courtroom and use of technology enhanced the efficiency of the clerk's office? Do you see a downside to the use of electronic documents? You first, Mr. Spicer.
Okay. One benefit that I think is going to affect the whole system is as a result of the experience of judges, including myself, with respect to doing these remote hearings through Zoom, is that in the future, ex-party hearings and motion calendar are not going to be held live in court anymore. They're all going to be done by Zoom, because it's unnecessary to have the people come to the court and end up with higher fees charged to their client, and for the lawyers charging ridiculously unnecessary fees to come to court. So the clerk's office has to be better prepared for having these hearings where there are no bodies in the courtroom, but everything has to be taken care of with respect to the court and the clerk's documentation of these hearings. Right now, they're not in a position to document what goes on in a Zoom platform type hearing. They have to acquire the technology which will enable them to do so. So that's very, very important.
All right. Do we have a rebuttal?
Yes, a rebuttal.
Go ahead, Ms. Foreman.
Judge Tudor and myself, we have already organized as to how this juror Zoom is going to happen, and it's already in process. We are sending out the juror notices to let them know what to do, how to do it, what numbers to call in on, and any information that they need, they can go to the 17th Circuit website as well as the Clerk of the Court website. So as far as the Zoom for jurors, It is happening. It is going to happen, and it's going to be happening very shortly.
All right, in process, says Ms. Foreman. Do we have any final rebuttal, Mr. Backman?
You know I'm going to rebut it.
Okay,
Whoever.
all right,
I'm
next
gonna
question
go-
goes to Ms. Foreman. Oh, did you
no,
want
no,
to?
no,
Go,
Oh, absolutely.
go ahead.
I think after 3.5 months, it's too early to totally evaluate the effectiveness of how the system is working, whether it be by judges, by the clerk's office, or anyone else. It's just not a sufficient time. I think in time we will be able to look at it. We need to move forward, but to ask how the clerk's office is doing in this, I think that's just too soon to tell. And I would not want to stick my foot in my mouth on that.
All right, give it more time. But it seems as if Zoom hearings of some sort are here to stay.
Oh, I
believe so.
totally agree with you on that.
Yeah,
But the question,
it's new and it's going to stick in to some degree or another.
but that wasn't the question.
Yes. All right, clerk, excuse me, Ms. Foreman, you'll get the next one. Court clerks manage a variety of tasks in courtrooms, including administering oaths, recording minutes, inspecting legal documents, and collecting court fees. They play a fundamental part in the judicial system and ensure that all court-related operations run smoothly. It has been reported that the morale at the clerk's office among staff is at an all-time low. What do you believe is the reason for the low morale, if you believe there is low morale? And what are your plans to raise the morale? Give us an example of a situation in which you managed or led a team to create higher morale or higher productivity in a working group. What were your keys to success?
Okay, the in-court clerks that I have, they do not collect fees. We don't collect fees inside the courtroom. So I can just, clear that out the way. The morale has been on high for me. When I came in, the morale was very, very low when I came into office. I gave them a Christmas party. They all, contributed in order to do a Christmas party they had never had in many, many, many years. We have directors that do incentives. On Fridays, they can dress down. On Thursdays, they can wear jeans if they want to pay into it. We let them have a voice when they never had a voice before I came into office. Employees never had a voice. So the employees have a voice into what they want to do and how they want to do it. So I will continue to let them have a voice with the chief directors, because they have to go through the chief directors in order for that to be brought up in reference to what they want to do, how they want to do it. So the morale, from what I've seen, and I have not heard any of my employees, and I do have an open door policy. If they have a question, they can always ask.
Okay, time. Any further rebuttal?
Yes, I have a rebuttal to that.
Go ahead, Mr. Spicer.
My experience in the courthouse, and I've been there for 37 and a half years, is that within the last 4 to 5 years, that the morale is very low. Especially, and I can't speak with respect to administration, but I could speak with about the deputies, clerks. They're in the lower level echelon of the hierarchy of the clerk's office. They're not happy because they don't feel the respect that they're entitled to, number one. And number two, there's no opportunities for promotion. And number three, there's no opportunities for increased pay. You can read a lot of different websites where a lot of these clerks write in anonymously complaining exactly about those facts.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Backman?
Yes. Morale starts at the top. And the way in which you do that is by the way in which you communicate with your employees. The people at the bottom of the pay scale are the ones that have most of the good ideas. They know how the system works. Right now, and I agree with Judge Spicer on this, the morale is at an all-time low. And if Ms. Foreman thinks it's very high, then she's at a different office. But nevertheless, we hear it as judges continually, and it has gotten worse and worse, and I'm finished with time.
Okay. Next question goes to you, sir.
Can I rebuttal on that?
Well, what you'll do is we'll have his question and you'll get the next one and you can address it in your question. But we are short on time and we have about 4 more good questions. We want to make sure we take care of you guys so you guys get to speak to the issues. But in your response to the question you made. All right, go ahead, Mr. Backman. This says, there is a serious concern about identity and property theft when it comes to our clerk of court. It has been reported that some people are using the internet to create documents that can steal property as well as identity? How can the clerk's office ensure document safety?
Well, I think part of that is having an integrated computer system that has top-notch security. I don't think you could ever totally stop individuals on the net from being able to create. But in order for the property, for instance, it has to have a judge's signature. So unless they're willing to forge their name on a document and the identity, again, this is all within the security that has to be formatted. Is that happening? I'll tell you, this is the first time I'm hearing it, to be honest with you. And while I have many complaints about the clerk's office, in my 36 years, I haven't heard it.
All right. I'm afraid we're out of time because we have so many other races to cover today. So we're going to allow each of you to give a 1-minute closing and to leave the voters and our viewers with your last message. We're going to go back to Mr. Spicer.
If I can just address that last question you asked.
Sure.
One of my platforms is that there's too much handling of exhibits and evidence that are marked in front of the judges by the clerks in the courtroom. Once it's handed and marked into evidence, it's given to the clerk, then in fact the clerk carries it downstairs. My proposal is that any document or any exhibit that's marked into evidence has to have a sticker on there, which it can be swayed by a computer object, so that every item that's marked into evidence is immediately recorded into the court
You have 30
register.
seconds left for your closing.
So that's my proposal. Again, what we need here is strong leadership. We need someone who's innovative. We need somebody who is not afraid to undertake challenges. I have innovated the mental health court, the drug court, and the veterans court. I believe in therapeutic jurisprudence. I think that justice doesn't mean just doling out punishment. Justice means reaching the right result. And that's how I acted as a judge, and that's how I will continue to act if I, in fact, are elected the clerk of the court.
Time.
Remember,
Thank you, Mr. Spicer. For her closing, Ms. Brenda Foreman, you have 1 minute.
I came from humble beginnings through the Jim Crow era in Alabama. I worked my way up from the bottom. Nothing has ever been given to me as a person that is truly, truly coming from that era. I understand what diversity is, different backgrounds, the different cultures, and understanding how to treat people with respect in today's society. I know that I am the right and best person to continue to be your clerk of courts. I have fulfilled the mission that I promised the voters in 2016 of what I would do. The people of Broward County entrusted me with the position, and I have not disappointed them. My aim now is to continue giving the voters my utmost integrity and continue to do the job they entrusted me with. I'm asking each and every one who is listening to the sound of my voice to cast your vote once again for Brenda D. Foreman, your first female and woman of color as your clerk of courts, to continue the job you have entrusted me with on August 18th, 2020. Early voting starts August 8th through the 15th, 2020.
Time.
Thank you.
Time, Ms. Foreman, thank you. And finally, rounding out our clerk of court candidates, we'll end with Mr. Backman.
My court reporter would kill me for the way in which I'm going to do this. But I have come out of retirement in an effort to change the culture and direction of the clerk's office. I have watched and studied the direction of the clerk's office that the clerk's office has taken since 2000, when we entered the computer age in our work. I've worked closely with many within the office and have seen how the interaction of the office in relation to all the stakeholders and the lack of cooperation has created an adversarial atmosphere instead of one that works to improve the workings of our judicial system. It is my belief the clerk's office should be one where controversy should not exist. We need a clerk who is professional, not confrontational, who is competent to handle any and all issues which arise, a clerk who is transparent and accountable in dealing with issues of concern. We need a clerk who is creative and innovative. The world of COVID has taught us that we can innovate and work in ways we never imagined we could. We need a clerk who is open, honest, and will lead by example. Oh, I don't get to give my Socrates
We're afraid
quote.
that you have exceeded, unfortunately, our time. We allotted 30 minutes for this first segment, but we want to thank each of the candidates for coming. Again, Mr. Mark Spicer, Ms. Brenda Foreman, and Mr. Paul Backman. You guys can go ahead and log off. And if you
Thank
want
you.
any more information about them, please look them up. Thank you so much for spending time with us and the voters here on
Thank you.
Connect and Elect.
Thank you all very
All
much
right.
for giving us this opportunity.
Of course, we thank you for coming. All right, we're gonna have them sign off as we get into our next race. Our next race is the Public Defender's Race. So you guys have to log off. Thank you, Mr. Spicer. Thank you, Mr. Backman. And we're gonna welcome now our candidates for Public Defender. There are 3 of them. And we need to see you, Mr. Weeks, if you can put your video on. There you go. And we're very excited to have 3 dynamic candidates who have agreed to join us. And we're going to also start with your opening. You guys will have 2 minutes to introduce yourselves. We'll also put up some facts about the public defender and what they do for those who may be watching and do not know. In no particular order, we're going to start with Mr. Gordon Weeks. Tell us in your introduction, your name, your experience, why you're running, and what are your goals for running for this office. Further, you can tell us what distinguishes you from your opponents, as well as what you think are the most pressing issues. You have 2 minutes beginning now. Go ahead, Mr. Weeks.
Thank you very kindly for putting on this forum so the community can get to know a little bit more about the candidates. My name is Gordon Weeks. I'm your Executive Chief Assistant Public Defender. I've been with the Public Defender's Office for over 20 years. I'm running for public defender because it is important that each self shall stand equal in front of the law. And this race is about the community. It's about the justice that is served in the courthouse each and every day. It's about the work that we do with the clients that we serve. It's about elevating the level of advocacy on behalf of our clients. And by doing that, we protect the community that we serve. It's about being a voice of reason, a voice of calm, a voice of understanding, to recognize that some folks are going to struggle with substance abuse and mental illness, and they need to have a steady hand to shepherd them through their recovery. It's about our children, to make sure that we put systems in place that are going to protect our children, to foster them, to mentor them, and to recognize that sometimes they may fall down and make a mistake, but we're not going to cast them away into a criminal justice system and into incarceration. We're going to try to put them back together to keep them going forward. This race is about the people. So with your support and with your vote on August 18th, Gordon Weeks for Public Defender.
You have 30 more seconds. Anything else you want to tell us about us, or tell us about yourself or your goals?
You know, the goals of this office is to make sure that we build on this great foundation that we have in the Public Defender's Office, to make sure that our attorneys are being trained and recruited from all across the United States, to make sure the quality of service in our office is impeccable and can stand against any other office in the county. The Law Office of the Public Defender is the largest criminal defense firm in Broward County, and as such, we will lead as we have, and we will continue to do so.
All right, 2 seconds is spared. Thank you very much. Next up, we will have Mr. Thomas Lynch. 2-minute introduction, please.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having this. It's a really important race, and I'm hoping to win it. My name is Tom Lynch. I was a public defender. I was hired right out of law school. In fact, before I was a lawyer, the Supreme Court certified me, and I was able to try jury trials before I was sworn in. Within 2 years, I became Chief Assistant Public Defender. I was in charge of the Juvenile Division, the County Court Division, the Mental Health Division, as well as all the interns. And I was very fortunate during that 4-year period that I was a public defender. I was able to try 90 jury trials, including 12 death penalty cases. After that, I started a law firm. I was then, when I was 33 years old, I was elected as a judge, county court judge, and I was appointed by our last Democratic governor to be a circuit judge. I was head of the civil division. I created the complex litigation division. I served on the bench for 32 years. It's very important that the lawyers in the public defender's office are trained. Right now, the training is lacking. It's also very important that all the lawyers have caseloads, because right now, many of the chiefs and many of the supervisors do not. Public defenders are trial lawyers, and if I'm lucky enough to win this race, every lawyer, including myself, will have a caseload and will be trying jury trials. There's also, the clerk owes the public defender over $12.5 million. There's been a couple letters written by Howard Finkelstein to request an audit. I'm going to be a little more forceful, a lot more forceful. I'm going to require an audit within 60 days. And if in fact that audit doesn't take place and we don't get the $12.5 million, I'm going to sue the clerk and get the money.
Time. All right, you brought up several issues there. Last but not least, we're going to go to our third candidate, Ms. Ruby Green, for her introduction.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ruby Lenora Green. I am currently an assistant public defender. I am from Broward County by way of Kaya City. I am a mother of a wonderful 13-year-old, and I've been working at a public defender's office since 2009. And I've been at the public defender's office here in Broward County since 2012. I worked my way up as the supervisor and chief of county court. And there are several things that our office needs to address, including the fact that there's an inherent fear of people of color, and we need to make the state attorney's office and the police departments address these implicit bias issues. We already know that race plays an important part in policing practices. And we need to make sure that we practice what we preach at the Broward County Public Defender's Office. My whole platform is of making sure that we have a holistic approach that is going to create a system in which works for us all. It includes making sure that we have access to housing, jobs, more substance abuse programs, more mental health programs, in order to reduce that revolving door of people going in and out of custody. We need to address the fact that we don't have fundings and we don't have anyone advocating for funding in our office in Tallahassee. Our attorneys and our staff is struggling. They have multiple jobs. Our office treats us as if we're disposable. We need to make sure that we're also promoting criminal justice reform. And when I say promote criminal justice reform, we already know that when we go to court, the majority of the people that are in that box are people of color. And we have sentencing disparities. And that means that people who are of color are being charged or being convicted of crimes 3 times as much as a person who is of a white race for the same crime. We also need to focus on minimum mandatory. So choose green for change to be seen.
Thank you, Ms. Green. All right, we have a slew of questions, so I want to get to them. Again, I'll go in that same order. Mr. Weeks, you have the first question, 1 minute to the person who I'm asking the question, and 30 seconds rebuttal to anybody who wants it. Again, welcome everyone. This is Connect and Elect. We hope you are enjoying our forums so far. We've had our clerk of the court. These are now Broward County Public Defender candidates. So the first question goes to Mr. Gordon Weeks. In 2019, to stem the exodus of poorly paid state-funded prosecutors and defense attorneys, Florida lawmakers passed a law mandating starting pay of $50,000 a year. But what was hailed as an important step in recruiting and keeping talented young lawyers has an unintended and dispiriting effect. The pay bump did not include raising the pay for seasoned attorneys. The result is that hires straight out of law school, usually assigned to handle drunk drivers, trespassers, and people caught with tiny amounts of illegal drugs, now earn about the same as their seasoned colleagues tasked with handling more serious crimes, such as robberies, rapes, and murders. What are your plans for retaining seasoned and experienced lawyers earning the same or about 1% difference from new hires? Mr. Weeks.
You know, that was one of the unintended consequences of trying to increase the retention of attorneys. You know, the legislature recognized that public defenders and state attorneys are a valuable resource, and they needed to increase the starting salary. We anticipated that was going to occur. So we took steps to make some cost savings, to tighten up the belt a little bit with our budget, to put some monies aside so we would be able to put something in place called compression, which would address the incremental increase of pay for those other attorneys that have been in their office doing the heavy lifting for a long time. There should not be an instance where a brand new attorney straight out of law school is making comparably higher than an attorney that has been there working and doing the heavy lifting for a long period of time. And we recognize that. We saved some money. We made some prudent decisions.
5 seconds.
And we made sure that we distributed that money to those other attorneys in the office so there would be a comparable step in those attorneys who would be equitably compensated.
Thank you. Any rebuttal? Ms. Green or Mr. Lynch?
Yes. At this present time, I can tell you that when we got the extra funding from the legislature for the new attorneys, everyone else got a bump, plus an additional 4 to 11% raise other than the experienced attorneys. The experienced attorneys, I don't know what Mr. Weeks is talking about, you know, them, you know, making sure that everybody had the money. The experienced attorneys were suffering. They are upset about what has happened. They still have not gotten compensated because the experienced attorneys, most of them only got a 2% raise, while everybody else got the initial bump and an additional 4 to 11%. And that's no way to treat the people who are staying there for pennies.
Time. Any comment from you, Mr. Lynch?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that Ruby is 100% correct. We need some change. Very simple. The clerk owes more than $12.5 million. If in fact that money is turned over, that money can be used for the employees and also for the tremendous benefit of the clients. You know, people that cannot afford an attorney deserve great attorneys. And it's my position that that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have highly trained lawyers, and I'll have everyone will have a caseload, and that will
5 seconds.
That will increase the morale in the office. It's dismal right now.
Thank you. Time. Mr. Lynch, the next question goes to you.
Do I get to
It has been
rebut
said
on that
that
issue?
offices such as the state attorney's or sheriff's office should be more reflective of the diversity of the community they serve. However, while the Broward County Public Defender's Office touts the 50 lawyers, there are less than 5 Black male lawyers working in that office. What are your plans for recruiting more Black males or people of color to the office?
I'm going to do my best to reach out to the community, to reach out to the law schools. It's my position that the Public Defender's Office should be tremendously diverse. When I was Chief Assistant Public Defender, the percent of minority clients was about the same as it is now. And there was recruiting going on, and it was very successful. I will also do whatever I can to bring in minority law students as interns and hopefully hire them afterwards.
You have 30 seconds. I'm going to do a quick follow-up. So in your experience, did you see a lack of diversity there in your years there?
I did early on, and then things changed. There was recruitment, there was reaching out to the law schools, and it was very successful. It's the best training that any lawyer can have, state attorney or PD. That's the way to go.
Time. All righty. Anyone want to give a rebuttal to that?
Sure.
Mr. Weeks, go ahead.
Yes, you know, I have taken the personal task of mentoring minority attorneys in the office. I have mentored them from first hires all the way up to their promotion to positions of management as chief assistants in the office. We have a diverse management, and we are going to continue to have a recruiting mentorship program that will encourage the recruitment and retention of minority attorneys. I know the value of minority attorneys in the office. I'm a Black male. I've worked my way all the way up from intern all the way through the most serious and most high profile cases in that office. And I know that mentorship is important.
Time.
Continue to mentor.
Understood. Time. Any rebuttal from Ms. Green?
Yes, we need to recruit, and as well as we need to make sure that the attorneys feel as if this is a respectable office, meaning that we need to bring camaraderie back. Black men don't feel comfortable that they'll be able to have a job after working at the public defender's office, but they can go and work for the state attorney's office. The issue is, and when I was chief in administration, I had an issue where I had to bring forth to administration that I only was left with one Black person. There was one Black person left, and I rose those concerns to administration. I was told to fight it out with the chief of training, which is also the person that does our recruiting and hiring. That's a problem. Administration should be able to say, hey, look at this. We need diversity. Ruby has one Black person here. Our jails are full of Black people. Our boxes are full of Black people. We need to address these issues by hiring more qualified, diverse
5 seconds. All right, thank you. And the next question goes to you, Ms. Green. As criminal courts grapple with COVID-19 and this pandemic, some in the legal community wonder if virtual jury trials could be next as a remote meeting via video conference or Zoom. Some are concerned that virtual trials would deprive defendants of their constitutional right to confront witnesses and an impartial jury, due process of the law, and to have effective counsel. How concerned are you about the possibility of virtual trials via Zoom? What problems do you see with a trial by Zoom, Ms. Green?
I am very concerned. As I know that we are in the works of trying some virtual jury trials out, or at least for voir dire purposes as well. But we need to, as public defenders, we love, and as defense attorneys as a whole, we need to have that client contact. Normally, our clients are sitting right next to us while we're in court, while we're in trial, and so that we can be able to communicate. There's no way that we can effectively communicate with our clients while via Zoom. There's no way, absolutely not. We also have issues with the impartial jury. We don't know if these people are gonna be who they say that they are. How are they verifying this? We don't know if they have an iPhone or any type of tablet in front of them where they can research our clients and find out if our client has some type of history. Those are main concerns when it comes to the jury trials, especially when it comes to contact with our client and being able to effectively cross those witnesses, because we know how good an effective cross when you're in someone's face can be, as opposed to hiding behind a computer screen.
All right, so that sounds like a no for you on jury trials via Zoom. Any other rebuttals?
Yes, I do. I'm a 100% no. There's no way, in my opinion, that a criminal defendant can have a fair trial via Zoom. Zoom is great for hearings. Zoom is great for civil hearings, especially. It's very beneficial, and I think it's going to be the new wave in the civil arena. As it relates to criminal trials, there's no way I would agree to a Zoom criminal trial. If I was a public defender, there's no way it's not happening.
I hear you, sir. Lastly, Mr. Weeks, would you like a rebuttal? Go ahead.
Yes, please. I created the system that we have in place now for virtual hearings for our office. We spearheaded that system with the court system along with the chief judge. It's a hard no for jury trials in the criminal arena. We've been very clear. We've made that message very clear to the chief judge and all the other stakeholders. Although we have reduced the jail population during the COVID-19 involving nonviolent offenders to the lowest point that it's ever been, we cannot concede that jury trials are going to be a process that we're going to use with virtual
hearing. I will have to stop you, but I'm just picturing as an attorney myself, whispering in my client's ear and saying what I need to say. And how are you doing that via Zoom? And how are you checking the jury's body language and all the rest of it? Yeah, that's a no for me as well. No across the board. All right, we'll see what happens with that. All right, going back to the top of the list, Mr. Weeks, the next question is for you. Public defenders are often charged with tasks better suited for social workers, such as finding residential treatment programs for their clients or housing for homeless clients and people charged with sex offenses. These tasks often take away from time that lawyers must use to practice law. Do you have any plans or any ways that you see that you can assist lawyers with this part of the job? Or do you believe that this is a part of their job? Mr. Weeks.
It's two passes. Yes, it's a part of your job as an attorney, because an attorney is not simply an attorney, they're also a counselor at law. And the counseling part of the law means that you help folks facilitate the help that they need. And sometimes that means helping identify the appropriate programming that will assist them get themselves back on their feet. However, to assist in that task, when I ran the juvenile division, I was a strong proponent of social workers working as dispositional specialists because they had a particular specialty to identify programming in the community. And we worked very hard in the juvenile division to work with our dispositional specialists to get children and families the help that I need. I plan on expanding that approach when we take over and lead this office, and because I recognize that it's an important aspect of assisting the attorneys to have additional resources available so they can advocate effectively with the courts.
Okay, thank you. Are there any rebuttals?
Yes, I'd like to jump in.
Go ahead, Mr. Lynch, and then Ms. Green, if you have.
Hello? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you hear me?
Sorry, Mr. Lynch, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. it's very important that the attorneys have the resources to do whatever is necessary in order to accomplish those goals that you mentioned. But I think it's very important that we increase the number of non-attorney employees in our office to facilitate this. It's very important placement in drug clinics, placement in mental health facilities.
Time. Yeah. So I'm gonna do a quick follow-up on you, Mr. Lynch, and I'll do it across the board. Since all of you have worked in this office, about what percentage of your time that you probably should have been counseling in terms of practice of law, but you were counseling in terms of finding additional resources? About what of your percentage, say per day, were you spending doing other type of counseling in terms of finding homes and drug programs and things for your clients? What would you say, Mr. Lynch?
I would say very little, maybe
Okay, 10% or less?
10%, I was going to say.
You,
10%.
Mr. Weeks?
You know, Tom Lynch has not been in the public defender's office for over 30 years. So his perspective on the type of—
Okay, well, before you rebut, I just want to know how much time so the people who are watching can get a sense of what we're talking about here.
There's an adequate balance of about 80% to 20% that is spent on finding resource for your client. But I think that's a valuable commodity that you put—
Okay, your point taken. Ms. Green, what do you spend? And then I'll allow you to rebut.
I think that I'm the only one that's actually a public defender that's working in the trenches. So I would guess that we spend at least 35 to 40% looking for housing if we want our clients to get out. The main thing about making sure that we have adequate staff and support systems for public defenders. We have some attorneys who are pushing 200 cases. The Supreme Court minimum is 150. We have clients who are see us as their doctors, their moms, their aunties,
10 seconds.
their uncle. And we need to be able to do all of that plus our jobs, plus go out to see them, plus prepare for trial, plus take depositions, plus file motions. So we definitely need more social workers at our office, especially for the misdemeanor and the felony divisions in which do not have social workers.
My hat's off to all public defenders. That's a lot for $50,000, but we're going to keep it moving and try to get to at least a couple more questions. We see the next race, a couple people have popped in. That's all right. This is Connect and Elect. We're doing about 3 races tonight. We have another forum coming up on Thursday. So we're glad that so many of you are excited and are joining us in this discussion of each and every office that we will be electing very soon in August. So next question will go to Mr. Lynch, and then I'll finish with Ms. Green, and then you'll get your closing statement. So Mr. Lynch, it is said that some of the funding woes that seem to plague the public defender's office could be alleviated if, and you mentioned this, I'm glad this came back to you, if the clerk of the court would turn over almost $20 million in public defender fees collected. What will you do to make sure those owed funds are turned over to the office?
60 days, come up with the money, or I'm filing a lawsuit. I'm not, Howard Finkelstein and Mr. Weeks signed off on a couple letters requesting some meetings and maybe a little audit. That's not how you get the money. I'm not leaving that money on the table. I think I mentioned earlier, people that can't afford an attorney deserve great attorneys. And with that money, and who knows how much it is at this point, with that money, we can really be helpful to our clients and to our employees. And there's no reason just to say, oh, I'm going to leave that money on the table and in the future we'll be okay and we'll get the money for the clerk.
All right. Thank you. Rebuttal?
Yes, please.
We have to make it short. Ms. Green, I'll give you the last question. Go ahead, Mr. Weeks.
I want to just make it very clear. I was the one that was tasked with identifying the monies that were owed by the clerk. It's $12.8 million that's owed by the clerk. By no stretch of the imagination am I going to leave that money on the table. I am going to pursue it to the very ends of the earth to make sure that our office is properly funded and the attorneys have the resource that available because of the clerk's mishandling of our collections.
Time. I have to go to Ms. Green just to make sure everybody gets the rebuttal. Go ahead, Ms. Green.
We can't be content with the bare minimum. We can't be content with sending a letter saying, hoping that someone's going to catch light of it, catch wind of it, and say, oh, you know, the public defender's office, they need their money. When are we going to advocate for the money? When are we going to start filing lawsuits? Because the attorneys and the staff at this office are suffering. That's the problem. We can't wait until they're, you know, somebody gets elected and then their term starts January 2020, 21st.
Can I
All
reply?
right, we have to go on because I have one more question to ask, and then you're gonna have 1 minute to close each. We have another race we have to get to. All right, implicit bias, Ms. Green, this is for you. Implicit bias refers to attitudes of stereotypes that affect our understanding of actions and decisions in an unconscious manner. These biases, which encompass both favorable and unfavorable assessments, are activated involuntarily without an individual's awareness of intentional control. In an office where the majority of the lawyers are white, but the clients are overwhelmingly minority, what training would you implement at the public defender's office that would address the issues of implicit bias with all the staff in the office? Ms. Green.
There's this company that goes around actually talking about race and equity. We need to address those issues. We have so many different people in our office. Like they said, a majority of people are white. They need to understand where other people come from. And it really, really plays a factor in how we represent our clients. A majority of our clients are people of color. And therefore, we need to make sure that the people who we are hiring, and you know, it goes into our hiring practices as well. You know, how are we putting people in this office that has never been in a situation where they, you know, haven't had a night, you know, where they didn't know where their bills are, if their bills are going to be paid, or if, you know, they're going to have food on the table for their kids. So people need to understand that. And if they understand that, then they can effectively represent people.
Thank you. Time. Any other rebuttals, please? Sorry, Ms. Green. I'm so sorry. We're trying to get to the state attorneys. Go ahead if there are any rebuttals.
I'll be quick. I think it's very important, and it has been very important. It hasn't been addressed. That's why it's one of the issues that needs change in the public defender's office. The sensitivity training that I had as a judge, not only in Broward County, but throughout the state conferences were very important. And you know what? If I get that $12.5 million from the clerk's office, I'll have the opportunity to hire those people.
And get it done. Time. Sorry about that. Go ahead. Last word, Mr. Weeks. And before we do your closings, go ahead.
Let me make it very clear. I have already implemented sensitivity and racial equity bias training for the chief assistants in the office. And I'm glad that Tom Lynch has mentioned his training as a judge. It's unfortunate that his training as a judge did not impact his sentencing that caused him to sentence Black males at a rate of twice as much than white males that scored equally in front of him. These are the realities that need to be addressed. Not only
3 seconds
in my office, but
I thank you.
All the stakeholders throughout the criminal court.
We're going to go. I apologize. We're going to go in reverse order for closings. And Mr. Lynch, you may respond to him in your closing. Sorry, we're out of time. Ms. Green, you're going to go first. You have a 1 minute closing starting now.
Yes, everyone. So my name is Ruby Green. Once again, I am an assistant public defender. I am running to be your Broward County public defender on August of 18th of 2020. It would be a great honor in order for me to serve you. I currently work in a public defender's office, and I am the only person on the ballot that you're going to see that's actually in the courtrooms, going to try cases, filing motions, arguing those motions, going to visit clients in custody. I'm the only person that you're going to actually see fighting for the rights of our clients in the community and our family and our loved ones. That is what I do, and that's what I will bring to the table because I am a zealous advocate. So on August of 18th, once again, vote green for change to be seen. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll go next to Mr. Lynch, your final statements.
Yes, I'm going to reserve my final statement. I'm not going to give it. I'm going to respond to Gordon Weeks because I didn't have the opportunity. Gordon, you should be ashamed of yourself bringing something like that up. You know that study has been totally debunked. In fact, Howard Finkelstein has been reported, and it's in Buddy Nevin's blog, that he has never heard anything bad about Tom Lynch. 100%, Mr. Weeks, that's a low blow, and it's really important that you don't do that kind of things in the future. It's absolutely ridiculous that you bring up that article. It's been debunked. There's no question about it. It talks about a 12-year study where I was in the criminal division for 3 years. So the first 6 years, I was saddled with the first 6 years that I was.
5 seconds.
And that's, you should be embarrassed, Mr. Weeks.
All right, and the final word goes to Mr. Weeks, 1 minute.
You know, I'm very proud of my record. I would encourage all of the listeners to Google every single candidate on this forum. Google myself and all the others, and you will see that my record is impeccable. I have stood for this community. I have fought for this community. When women were being denied treatment in a jail while delivering a baby, I fought for them. When officers were abusing their power and engaging in misconduct, I stood up and fought. When our children were being forced through the criminal justice system at alarming rates, I stood up and fought. That is what I did. That's what I'm going to continue to do. I've been involved in the most high-profile case, the most complex cases in this community, and I will continue to do that. So this office will be in good hands with Gordon Weeks as your next public defender. Thank you very kindly.
Again, well, you have 8 seconds, but we'll end it there. Thank you again, public defender candidates. Thank you, Gordon Weeks. Thank you, Mr. Thomas Lynch. And thank you, Ms. Ruby Green, for joining us on Connect and Elect. We wish we had more time, but again, you can check the comments if anybody had any questions for you. Thank you very much for your time. We're going to move to the next race. You can log out. Thank you. A pleasure. This next room, this next Zoom room will be quite full. And we welcome the candidates now for the State Attorney, Office of the State Attorney of Broward County. Thank you for holding tight. We want to see your faces. Go ahead and show us your faces on your video, activate your video, and we're going to start right now. So we will go over time, guys. I'm so sorry. We will probably take an extra 10 minutes. It's 9 of you guys, but we think it's important enough to go ahead and ask you, at least each person will get 1 question, and I will take 2 rebuttals. So I'll kind of go and do a round robin on rebuttals. But we'll start with your name, experience, why you are running, your goals for the office, what further distinguishes you from your opponent, of course, and what are your most pressing issues as to why you were seeking this office. And I'm going to go in a random order. And if I see him now, Mr. Kennedy, I see you. You're up first. You're going to have 90 seconds to do your introduction. Please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. My name is David Kennedy. I'm running for State Attorney in Broward County. And I'm running for the position because we need generational change in our county. It's the first time in over 4 decades, really in a generation, where we've had the opportunity to affect change in our county. The current state attorney has been in office for over 40 years. He was actually younger than me when he took office. I'm 35 years old. So when you're this age, you don't have the ability to forget about the past, but you also have the ability to effect change right now and also pursue change for the future. So not only am I running for those reasons, but because we need security, justice, and economy. I always talk about security, justice, and economy in our campaign. That's ensuring our communities are secure, our most vulnerable members, equitable justice, but also economic justice, because we're not going to get out of this race that we're in if we are not engaged in economic justice as well. I look forward to engaging with you. Thank you so much to the AKAs and the Deltas for putting this on. This is a beautiful, beautiful opportunity. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Kennedy. We appreciate you. We're going to go next to Ms. Teresa Fanning Williams. You're up next.
Thank you so much. Good evening. With 25 years of experience on both sides of the podium in criminal law, a degree in the administration of criminal justice from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and a Florida bar certification telling you that I am an expert in the area of law in criminal trial, you know that I'm ready to be your Broward County State Attorney on day 1. I'm Teresa Fanning Williams, and many of you may already know me as the person who stood for criminal justice reform when it wasn't convenient. I am the only candidate in this race who took on the 40-year incumbent in 2016. I did that because I saw a system of criminal justice that really served only to get people reelected and make people money, and I took a stand. I took the bull by the horns, and I am now back to finish what I started. I got 48% of the vote, and Mr. Satz is now retired. What I'm seeking to bring to this county is balanced approach to criminal justice reform, one that's rooted in experience, professionalism, and also rooted in the fact that we need the type of person who is going to be tough, firm, and fair running our criminal justice system in Broward County. And I'm the candidate to bring you that. I'm Teresa Fanning Williams. I'm asking for your vote on August 18th. Thank you.
Thank you. With 9 seconds to spare. All right, our next up will be Mr. Joe Kimmock. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. Good evening. As we sit here tonight, the families of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Rayshard Brooks and thousands like them, they're having dinner without their loved ones. At the same time, over 176,000 of our fellow Floridians are sitting in cages tonight. And we didn't get here by accident. It was purposeful. Our first police departments were organized to catch runaway slaves. Our first jails were set up, purposefully constructed as work camps for newly freed slaves. Today, from cash bail to the war on drugs to the direct file of children, our system was designed and continues to oppress entire communities of color. I'm the proud husband to Jordy. I'm dad to Jackson and Julia, and I spend every day, every waking moment thinking about how to keep them safe. I'm a major crimes attorney with the Office of Regional Conflict Counsel. I'm a former high school English teacher, and I'm the immediate past president of the Broward Criminal Defense Bar. I'm also the son of a single mom. I was raised on food stamps and soup kitchens. And as a criminal defense lawyer for folks who can't afford one, I spend every single day in our courtrooms fighting for those this system was designed to oppress. As your state attorney, I'll fight for you, and we'll build a new criminal justice system together.
All right, that's time, 7 seconds to spare. We're gonna go over to Mr. Jim Lewis. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Thank you for joining us. You can take yourself off of mute, and you have 90 seconds to give your introduction. I know you just joined us. Tell us your name, your experience, why you are running for the office, your main goals, or what distinguishes you from your opponents, and what are the most pressing issues as to why you're running for office. Go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
Well, good. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Jim Lewis. I'm the oldest candidate in this race at 62 years old. I've been a lawyer nearly 40 years. Began my career as a prosecutor in Orlando. Then I worked for Governor Bob Graham as a special prosecutor to the statewide grand jury. And then lastly for Attorney General Bob Butterworth as an assistant statewide prosecutor. I've also been a professor of law at Nova University for about the last 25 years, having the opportunity to teach many of the state attorneys, public defenders, and judges that we have in the Broward County Courthouse. I think what gives me the advantage is my trial experience. I've taken on some pretty heated cases over the years, had the opportunity to try the Lionel Tate case, to represent the Cocaine Cowboys killer, and even lately representing the Sneeds, which is the family that harbored Nicholas Cruz at the time of the Parkland shooting. So I'm not afraid to take on difficult cases. What do I want to do? I want to bring some new progressive eyes to the state attorney's office, but I want to do it with a steady hand. I still believe that the most important function of the office is to protect people, to protect the community. We've got to do better that innocent people don't go to jail. We've got to do more to people with mental health issues and drug addictions get the help they need. We've also got to do more to stop this opioid epidemic.
5 seconds.
And if I'm your opportunity, I'm going to put those drug dealers in jail where they belong. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. We're going to go to Mr. Justin McCormick. You have 90 seconds for your introduction.
Thank you. 90 seconds. My name is Justin McCormack. I'm a prosecutor. I work in the state attorney's office in the public corruption unit. I prosecute police brutality, excessive use of force, misconduct, corrupt politicians, dishonest lawyers, and anyone else who breaks the trust of the public. I'm running for state attorney for one reason, that's to bring criminal justice reform to Broward County. I've represented people that can't afford a lawyer charged with crimes. I was an assistant district attorney in Pittsburgh, and I've been assistant state attorney here in Broward for the past 5.5 years. I know how the criminal justice system works. I know how it can be changed for everyone's benefit. I know how to prosecute crimes. The last police officer I took to trial got 10 years in prison. Now we need to find ways to address the majority of the people that come into the criminal justice system that suffer from mental health issues, suffer from poverty, suffer from substance abuse, so that they don't spend their lives in and out of jail and on and off probation. We need to address the underlying causes of crime so that we can get people out of the criminal justice system. We can seek justice for victims, society, and defendants, and have a criminal justice system that's fair for everyone. If you want a state attorney that has the ability and the vision to bring reform to Broward, vote for me, Justin McCormack, and I guarantee that a change will come. Thank you.
All right, 4 seconds. Thank you. We're going to go for our next introduction to Ms. Saranel Murphy. You can unmute yourself, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I was working here in South Florida as a felony probation officer when I found my purpose, and I knew my purpose was going to be in my career as a prosecutor. I've served this community as a prosecutor for 24 years, and what that makes me is the best architect for positive change. I know what's working and I know what needs to work better. I think that in the times we're living in right now, our life experiences and our relationships define how we interact, react, and empathize with people. So on the personal side, I am an adopted child. I attended public school. My first foray into any amount of activism was watching my mom fight for the Equal Rights Amendment as a member of the National Organization of Women. I've served as a caregiver to my dad for the past 16 years after he lost his vision to glaucoma. I've been married for 22 years, which makes me an expert in dispute resolution, and I have 2 little girls, and it's probably my role as mom that shapes most my actions. I realize that I've spoken to my children as a prosecutor about the dangers of a stranger, and I've talked to them about good touch, bad touch, but I also realize that I've never had to talk to my children about being afraid of the police, and no parent in Broward County or anywhere in this country should have to have that conversation. I have the experience, the training, and the proven leadership skills to lead this office into its next chapter, and I hope to do that with your support. I'm Saranel Murphy. I'm asking for your vote on August the 18th. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect timing. 3 seconds is fair. We're going to go next. And we know it's tough to look at your computer or your phone screen, but we want to thank you. Thank you to all these candidates. Of course, the state attorney has an incredibly important job. So we're going to make sure each of you gets at least 1 question and 2 rebuttals. And we're going to go next for our last 3 introduction, or I believe it's last 2. We're going to go to Mr. Harold Pryor. You have 90 seconds for your introduction.
Lizette Speaks. Thank you so much for moderating this and having us. Thank you to the extraordinary and beautiful women of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and the beautiful women and extraordinary women of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. My name is Harold Pryor. I'm a proud husband, I'm a proud father, and I'm a proud attorney. But more importantly, I'm a proud Black man. Growing up, I experienced the criminal justice system from so many different vantage points. From the vantage point of having family members who were brutally murdered, and we watched the criminal justice system treat them less than because of the color of their skin or because they had mental health issues or drug addiction issues. I had family members who had mental health and drug addiction issues, and we saw criminal justice system treat them less than, and we saw their lives spiral down in this vicious cycle we know as the criminal justice system. I served as a prosecutor where I tried misdemeanor offenses all the way to serious felonies. I'm a proud father of a 2-year-old Black son, and I worry every day, me and my wife, every day, how are we going to raise this son in this dangerous world? I'm running for state attorney because I truly believe that we don't have to prosecute low-level drug offenses, that we don't have to prosecute those with mental health issues, that we can vigorously prosecute those elected officials who violates the people's trust and taxpayer dollars. We have an opportunity to vigorously prosecute those who would target the most vulnerable of our society. I am ready day 1 to serve as your next state attorney because I have the experience, the life experiences, and the professional experience. After serving as a prosecutor, I served in the civil realm as a civil attorney and as an in-house counsel for a multi-million-dollar telecommunications company. I am ready to take on the large task of initiating ground-level criminal justice reform while not compromising the safety of our communities. I look forward to interacting with everyone and answering your questions. And please learn more about me at www.haroldpryor.com. I'm looking forward to this. Let's make history. Thank you.
All righty. So thank you. Thank you. All right.
You froze, Suzette. Is that my turn to go?
We're just looking at our internet connection. We just want to make sure you guys. Hi, guys. I took a little break there.
Okay, we hear you
So
now, I think.
we want to make sure you guys are still with us.
I'm still here, Suzette. Are you ready for me to go?
We're still here. All right. The internet connection will not defeat us. So we are going to do our final introduction. We are going to go to Mr. Joshua Rydell, and then we're going to go to questions. Go ahead, Mr. Rydell.
Thank you so much for having us and putting this on. I apologize in advance for not having shaved and also for the frozen sing-along that's going in the shower tied to this room with my children. I am a father first and a husband. I have two little girls, a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. I am a criminal defense attorney. I am an elected official in the city of Coconut Creek. But let's talk about what makes me different from everybody in this forum. I've actually never been a prosecutor. I have never worked for the state attorney. I've never put people in prison. I'm a lifelong criminal defense attorney and advocate that has seen the criminal justice system, the good, the bad, and the sometimes, and most of the time in this county, the very, very ugly. Our system needs to change. We need to stop criminalizing substance abuse and mental health. We need to give people breaks when they deserve it. The first time that someone sees a prosecutor should be in a classroom, not a courtroom. There's so many principles that we can change day one. When I saw something wrong in my community, as one of the youngest elected officials at the time, I ran for office in 2015. I was the youngest elected official in the city of Coconut Creek's history, and we became active in major regional issues and started changing Broward for the better. We're able to engage with our schools. The next state attorney needs to be somebody that can build a consensus and bring people together to change a system that we know is very, very broken. And this isn't very, very broken to the narrative over the past couple months. This has been very, very broken since I stepped foot in my first courtroom over 15 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen that are watching, I urge you, and I would love to talk to each and every one of you. I want to earn your vote. I want you to vote for Joshua Rydell on August 18th because we can change Broward for the better.
Sir.
We deserve it.
Thank you, Mr. Rydell.
Thank you.
So we're going to go to our first question. So there's so many of you, we cannot allow everyone to do a rebuttal, but we're certainly going to allow at least 2 of you, and I'm going to try to make it fair so the same 2 people are not talking all the time. All right, Mr. Kennedy, we're going to start with you. It says, Broward County State Attorney's Office has a reputation to have one of the highest rates of direct filings for Black juveniles to adult courts. So taking juveniles and moving them into adult court, right? Some view this as a measure of systematic racism and a push towards not giving Black youth the same opportunity as other races when charged with serious crimes. What efforts will you make to ensure that direct filing of juveniles is a last resort? What fair legal options are available for minority youth? And do you support the Promise program, which has been in the news, of course, and other diversionary programs for juvenile offenders? You have 1 minute, Mr. Kennedy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. It's an important question because I believe that Broward County State Attorney's Office is the place where our juveniles can have that last chance. I'm gonna get straight to the point because I only have 60 seconds. Look, everybody understands, and I'm pretty sure that everyone on this panel will say that they support the Promise program or the premise of it. Diversion programs as well. Even the Public Defender's Office says that Broward County has the best and most diverse 12 diversionary programs. The issue isn't diversion. In fact, the issue is when a child is direct filed, how do we know that that child should have been direct filed? When I'm state attorney, that will come across my desk. It is a mandate from the community. But more importantly, when the individual is 18, 19, 20, but they still have the mind of a juvenile, how do we deal with those cases when they don't have a record? And who do you want in this position making those decisions? You need discretion. You need people with experience. You need trained prosecutors. Thank you.
excuse me, I wanted to just get a show of hands. If you do support the Promise program, if you do, yes, can I see your hands, please? So that looks like everyone here. Okay, I didn't want to assume, Mr. Kennedy, although you said everybody would be supporting it. Now, do we have any rebuttals with regards to direct filing of juveniles into adult court? Any rebuttals, please? Mr. Go ahead, Mr. Pryor, and then Ms. Williams. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is a passionate topic of mine. I love to mentor young Black youth. I'm going to give everyone some stats that I've said before. Black youth in Broward County make up about 39% of the youth population. Of the youth arrests in Broward County, about 75% of those arrests are Black youth. That's a problem. That goes to a systemic issue in our country, not only in Broward County, but the country as a whole, that our communities are over-policed and kids are being judged by the color of their skin, and we're not treating kids like kids. Yes, I support the Promise program because it was created to eradicate the school to prison pipeline. It is
okay, your time is up. I hear the problem. What's your solution? 10 seconds.
Thank you. We should protect the Promise program. We should expand some of the offenses that go inside of there to treat kids like kids.
All right, thank you. Ms. Williams?
Essentially, what I plan on doing is creating a multidisciplinary approach to making decisions about whether or not juveniles should be direct filed. I sat down with the Southern Poverty Law Center, who are currently developing best practices in this area. But in order for this to really be real and for us to change the major racial disparity that has existed in Broward County in reference to juvenile direct files for a very, very long time, we need to have a statistical database where we're keeping track of exactly what we're doing to make sure we're doing it right.
5 seconds.
I'll implement both of those things, and when I become your next state attorney as part of my platform, Teresa Fanning Williams.
All right, Miss. All right, okay.
All
right, you have
are we
the
able
next
to?
question.
Ms. Speaks, are we able to rebut? Because
No, because
okay,
we have a myriad of questions, so you can rebut on the next question. Okay.
Understood.
We're looking at our viewers. Thank you, viewers, for sticking with us. These are all the candidates for state attorney in Broward County, and we're going to go to our next question. That will be for Ms. Teresa Fanning Williams. The question reads. Right, we talked about implicit bias, and there's been a lot of studies about attitudes of people, though unconscious, affecting how they are represented and who is prosecuting them as well. Do you believe that implicit bias may affect plea bargaining? And what training would you implement at the state attorney's office that would address the issue of implicit bias and make prosecutors aware of their own implicit bias? Let's talk about plea bargaining. Go ahead.
Well, absolutely. I believe that implicit bias affects plea bargaining. I've been familiarized with the statistical basis for the fact that implicit bias is present in our criminal justice system at alarming levels. What am I going to do about it? Number one, first thing, immersive implicit bias training program, day one at the state attorney's office. I'm going to be bringing in outside professionals to come in and really pull out the conversations, the uncomfortable things that need to be said, and that need to be said at the state attorney's office. People need to feel comfortable with the fact that they can talk, that they can be free with their feelings, or we're not really ever going to be able to learn. At the end of the day, again, we need to bring that statistical database back into view, because not only do we need to train against implicit bias, but we need to make sure that we're doing it correctly. We can't just implement policies and just say, hey, look, we're doing something, so something must be happening. Not only
Ms. Fanning, time is up, but I want to ask that first part of the question. Do you believe implicit bias may affect plea bargaining?
100%, and I believe there's a statistical basis in science that establishes that already.
Okay, so we gotta definitely address it. All right, is there any other rebuttals, someone who has not spoken yet? Go ahead, Ms. Murphy, and then Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you. I think that implicit bias is something that we all have to realize is real. I think that there are some tests that individuals can do for themselves. I took the Harvard implicit bias test. It was an interesting protocol. I think that the office needs to offer training more often. I had the ability to participate fairly recently in a 2-day implicit bias racism seminar that was put on by the Racial Equality Institute out of South Carolina, and it was great. I learned a lot, and I think that I would love to expose all prosecutors to that training. They are, yes. It was well done.
And time, thank you. Mr. Kennedy, your response?
Implicit bias training isn't enough. We've been through this before. Someone comes in and says, this is what implicit bias is. We all have it. Stop it. It's not going to help, even if it's immersive and intensive. This is what I will do as state attorney. I will specifically, we won't file cases that have bad arrests as pertains to Fourth Amendment. Number two, we will not defer to the police in their initial ideations of the case because they are not attorneys. And finally, the state attorney will have a position on the excessive use of force administrative panel that BSO and other chiefs have. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to the next question. Is for Mr. Joe Kimmock. How are you, Kimmock? How are you? You can unmute yourself. In recent years, killings of Black men at the hands of police have led to intense scrutiny of the use of deadly force by police officers and how those police officers are prosecuted. Prosecutors typically consider themselves part of the law enforcement team with police, and they may even know the potential defendant. As a state attorney, how do you handle a fatal use of force incident involving police?
Well, the first is what we've done in this campaign. When the police unions came in and asked us to meet with them for endorsement and money, we said no. We were the only, I believe we were the only campaign not to hold our hand out to them. In fact, we are the only campaign as of today to sign the no cash from cops pledge. The state attorney should not be taking money from police. As state attorney, look, we've had these issues for 50 years. Malcolm X gave a speech 50 years ago talking about how police would beat Black people up and then turn around and charge them for a crime. All of us that are criminal defense lawyers on this panel know that that still happens every day in Broward County and across the nation. What our plan entails is mandating that police agencies use and have and use body cameras. If not, we will not file charges in which police are the only witnesses. Two, we set up an independent prosecutor because, like you are correct, the relationships between police and prosecution are such that they create extraordinary conflicts of interest. And so what we will do is hire former public defenders or civil rights lawyers with a track record of aggressively going after
Thank you, Mr. Kimmock.
Police misconduct.
All right, we got to stop you there. I'm going to take two people I haven't heard from. Was that a hand, Mr. Rydell?
Well, yeah, it was.
Yes, and then Mr. McCormack. Okay, Mr. Rydell, go ahead.
My rebuttal to that, I disagree with Joe on this. I think you need to work together. I mean, to say that the police officers are enemies, we're all in this together to keep our communities safe. That has to happen. And it has to be more global than just police departments and police agencies in the state attorney's office. It has to be municipalities. It has to be faith-based institutions. It has to be sororities and fraternities and education institutions. We all have to work together to solve this problem.
Let me just stop you there because I just want to make sure you address the question because yes, you're in it together, but it says prosecutors have to sometimes prosecute police. So we're going to ask again, as a state attorney, how would you handle a fatal use of force involving the police? How would you handle that?
The current state attorney sends things to investigation now before making decisions. We would not do that. We have no problem after an active investigation returning charges immediately if there's misconduct, specifically if you look at some of the nationwide cases that have happened. They sit on their hands traditionally and do nothing. I've lived this for 15 years and seen police do terrible, terrible things. And we've never acted on it when we have an opportunity now to actually address it and not hide under the guise of investigations and grand juries.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Mr. McCormack.
Yes, so I'm an assistant state attorney. I prosecute police. I've worked with them. Prosecuting police that I have worked with or that I may know from an agency has no effect on me. If you commit a crime, we got to hold you accountable. It's more important now than ever before that when law enforcement breaks the law, that we hold them accountable to rebuild the trust with the community. We see now how that trust is broken when they're not held accountable. And that's one of the most important things and one of the reasons why I'm in this race to run for state attorney, because I stand up to them and I have no problem holding anybody accountable, whether or not I know them or not. I also prosecute lawyers. I'm a lawyer. Lawyers break the law. I prosecute.
All right, Mr. McCormack. Time. So we did have something brought up there that said that a candidate was the only candidate that did not receive funds from police or police agencies or police related organizations. Please raise your hands if you have not received funds from police related organizations.
And just
Okay,
to
so there are
correct, I said
several-
I was the only candidate not to seek an endorsement from
Oh,
the
seek an
police
endorsement.
union,
Okay, we
not
just
to
want to
meet
put it
with
on the
them.
record.
I am
We
the
just wanna
only
put it on the
candidate
record.
to sign the no cash from cops pledge.
All right, thank you. We're gonna go next to Mr. Jim Lewis. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. The question is for you, and then I'll get another rebuttal coming up. The issues of resident safety in the context of increasing homelessness and in and around the county has elevated the challenge of balancing law enforcement with humanitarian policies. Many of the homeless have mental issues in addition. What efforts will you take in the state attorney's office to develop diversion programs for people who are homeless with mental illness to avoid incarceration in many of these cases? What would you say to that, Mr. Jim Lewis?
Well, I think that's very important. I think here in Broward County, we have a history, especially in Fort Lauderdale, treating homeless people horribly, to keep them from being fed on the streets and all kinds of discrimination, kicking them out where they reside. But, you know, I believe in change, and I believe we here in Broward County can move forward. The community court that's been set up in the Fort Lauderdale City Hall, I think, is a good first step. But yes, we need to not criminalize homelessness. We need to put out a helping hand to these folks. You know, we unfortunately had 2 homeless people that were just murdered down on the beach. We don't do enough to help them as victims. That's one thing we need to do, is make sure that their rights are protected like anybody else from people that would harm them. But specifically, we're not going to do panhandling cases or cases typically or urinating in the park, cases like that typically homeless people find themselves in. I believe in a hand up to help folks. Certainly using our jails system to throw people in jail who are mentally ill or living on the streets is a horrible, horrible waste of resources.
Time. Okay, it sounds like so you're going to find a way to try to divert some of those simple nonviolent cases. Any other rebuttals at this time? Go ahead, Mr. McCormack. Go ahead, Mr. Kennedy. Ms. Murphy, you have the next rebuttal. Go ahead, Mr. McCormack.
I would like to expand our diversion programs to allow many more people involved, and also get rid of a requirement that one time only in your life in the world can you have diversion and then never again, because in life, people make mistakes, people change, people improve, and just because someone has a slip up doesn't mean they should be barred from diversion forever or kicked out of diversion. So I would expand those options to allow people to come into diversion on multiple occasions, not just one time only.
All right, time. Go ahead, Mr. Kennedy.
So your question specifically was about mental health and homelessness. So this is what I will do when I am state attorney. Specifically, we have one part-time mental health and one part-time substance abuse court. I want to expand that to 2 each. We have 2 million people in Broward County. We need sufficient courts. Number 2, with regards to homelessness, but also a lack of economics. Remember the economic portion. If you do not have a secure community, you cannot have a prosperous community. That's why I'm starting the E&E, Economics and Education's Reentry Court. It's something that the federal courts do. And when I was in the Obama administration, that the DOJ implemented under its Smart on Crime initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next question is to Mr. Joshua Rydell. Josh, the purported war on drugs has led to marijuana-related and opioid convictions, which have hampered individuals' access to jobs and housing later on. What efforts would you make to reduce drug-related convictions, if you want to reduce those? Would you be in favor of expunging marijuana-related convictions for small amounts of marijuana?
Yes, but it's not the answer to the question first, yes, but it's not a war on drugs because wars end. And what's going on in this country with drugs has no end in sight. It's theoretically longer than any war in the history of the world. So it's a bad policy on drugs and it needs to end. And we're this terrible state that if you get convicted of a simple possession of any drug, automatic felony conviction, automatically lose your driver's license. That is the definition of a systematic issue that has created the problem that we're in, specifically in minority communities and communities of color. This is the issue. The fact that you're taking someone's driving license away and convicting them of a felony and taking their civil rights away is a major problem. And I am 100% going to change that culture where we've sought mass convictions on drug offenses, which needs
All right,
to
Mr.
end.
Rydell, you have 10 seconds. What would you do in terms of expunging marijuana-related convictions? Are you for expunging or not?
Well, expunging after a case, you talking going back and expunging, or are you talking about expunging, agreeing to expunge?
Those have already been settled and going backward.
Yes, I would be. I would 100% be open to that, as well as cases where there's been negative immigration consequences on a litany of charges. I would be open, which is not the welcoming climate the current state attorney's office has.
Okay. Ms. Murphy, do you want to rebuttal on this, or would you reserve? Go ahead, Ms. Murphy, then Mr. Pryor.
Thank you. Let me tell you what I've already done. So with the institution of civil citation in our county, which was designed intentionally for marijuana offenses in which Black and brown people are more, the arrest rate is through the roof in comparison to white people. So their heart was in the right place, but when I looked at the statistics and realized that the civil citations, the bulk of them in our county initially were being issued in the city of Weston, I expanded our misdemeanor diversion program to allow individuals 3 opportunities to participate and not be labeled a criminal. So I've also reviewed individuals who are seeking equitable relief from me to vacate past convictions because they are either facing socioeconomic consequence or deportation, and I would continue to do so.
So you've gone back. Okay, Mr. Pryor, go ahead. And I see Ms. Williams and Mr. Kim up. You'll have the next rebuttal for the next question. Go ahead, Mr. Pryor, with your rebuttal.
Yes, this question is extremely personal in the sense that the failed war on drugs has decimated my family and extended family. I've had family members who went into state custody and also did federal custody for drug offenses or drug crimes, or the sentencing disparities between powder cocaine and crack cocaine. Look, I, as the next state attorney, am passionate about expanding diversion program for possession cases for misdemeanor and felony offenses. Secondly, the prior administration of the state attorney's office, we will not prosecute possession of cannabis cases, 20 grams or less, or possession of drug paraphernalia cases. We truly need.
All right, we have you on the record.
Not people.
Time.
Sorry about that.
Time, sir. Okay, you have the next question. Some critics say that the death penalty is not an effective deterrent to crime. What is your opinion on the death penalty? And if you believe in it, when should it be imposed?
Yes, thank you.
Harold.
Thank you, Ms. Suzette. Thank you for that question. It's a thoughtful question. Personally, I am against the death penalty. Personally, I don't think it's right. I think it's wrong. I don't know. I can't say if I'm the only one in this forum or the candidate that's experienced this, but I had a family member who was brutally murdered, and the death penalty was on the table in Georgia. And I saw the strength of my grandmother and my mother actually stand up and tell the judge and the prosecutor that they didn't want to seek the death penalty in that particular case. That strength and that religious resolve has had a profound effect on me. Now, as the job as state attorney, I will swear to uphold the Constitution of the state of Florida. And so to avoid the governor and the legislature coming in and taking my discretionary function as state attorney, I can say to you that I will review each death penalty case on a case-by-case basis. And I am confident after you see my first term, my first year in office, I truly believe that those who are opponents of the death penalty, they will be proud of my record.
10 seconds. I want to know, when do you think it should be applied?
I think you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. When the crime is heinous and it reaches those facts and it reaches the level to where—
Keeping it broad, but sir, okay, we'll keep it broad. I had allowed Ms. Williams, did you want a rebuttal here?
Sure.
Go ahead. Mr.
Thank you
Kimmett,
very much.
Mr. Lewis, you'll have the rebuttal on the next question. Go ahead. Ms. Williams first.
Thank you. To answer your question, I am personally against the death penalty. However, as the state attorney, we are required to follow the law, and I will follow the law. I'm going to do it quite differently than what is currently done at the Broward State Attorney's Office. One person makes this decision. And quite frankly, I believe that they apply the death penalty across the board to get a better jury pick. Quite often, the death penalty is waived after jury selection, when now you have a jury that everybody's able to give the death penalty. I'm going to do a different type of a committee type of process where I will have experienced lawyers making these decisions. It will not just be one person.
Yes.
We'll sparingly and utilize our resources appropriately.
All right, Mr. Kimmett, you have the last word on that question. Go ahead.
Thank you. Look, the death penalty is a medieval institution that should be thrown in the dustbins of history. We shouldn't be tiptoeing around it. It is not and never has been about the worst of the worst. It is about poverty. It is about race. It is about mental illness. And it is dying. According to the Atlantic, only 3% of U.S. counties still regularly pursue the death penalty. Broward County is one of them. Look, I am an imperfect person. My government is certainly imperfect. Florida leads the nation in folks being exonerated from death row. I believe, as Brian Stevenson says, that the question is not whether someone deserves to die, but whether we deserve to kill.
All right, I'm going to ask a question and I'm going to see a raise of hands. Again, I know that your personal belief may not impact your job performance when required to apply the death penalty. If you are personally opposed to the death penalty, may I see your hand? Okay, suffice it to say there are other views and circumstances. Thank you. Next is Ms. Saranel Murphy. Your question has to do with, and we asked this to the clerk of the court, so we'd like to hear what you'd like to add to this conversation as the state attorney. As criminal courts grapple with the COVID-19 pandemic, someone in the legal community wonder if virtual trials by jury could be next. We are seeing a lot more hearings remote and via video conferencing, such as Zoom, and they're becoming a fixture in our courts. Some are concerned that virtual trials would deprive defendants of their constitutional rights, including to confront witnesses, to have an impartial jury, of having due process of law, and of course, effective counsel. How concerned are you about the possibility of trial via Zoom? What problems do you see if we are to implement trial by Zoom? Go ahead, Ms. Murphy.
In a word, many. I had the opportunity for the past about 18 months of working on a project in my division in the office. I'm the chief of our misdemeanor trial unit. And it was a goal of mine to create a paperless unit, to move forward so we're not wheeling files across the street in a box. We were able to do that. And that, under my leadership, did enable us to move rather seamlessly from working in the office and the courtrooms to working remotely. However, it is fraught with difficulty and problems in protecting the rights of defendants and the rights of victims doing virtual trial. We are currently having success in running our day-to-day docket. We're even having success in some amount of evidentiary hearing where it can be all the information can be distributed to the parties in advance. My concerns with virtual trials are not only the integrity of the jury process, but the ability of the defendant to consult privately with their counsel, which of course is paramount. And additionally, there's case law talking about the confrontation of witnesses. And I think we're biting off more than we can chew.
So you're not a fan. You're not a fan. Mr. Lewis, do you want a rebuttal on this question, or you would like to reserve?
Reserve, please.
Okay, how about you, Mr. Rydell?
Yeah, so my belief is this: the state attorney is kind of the prosecutor in chief of the courthouse. Under a Josh Rydell administration, there's not going to be criminal jury trials via Zoom. Not happening. That just is the wrought with so many terrible issues that you have to be innovative and creative in other ways. If in civil and you want to do depositions or some hearings, if everyone agrees, I could be okay with that. But criminal jury trials will never happen on Zoom in a Josh Rydell administration.
All right, any other rebuttals there?
Yes. Hello?
I have not heard from Mr. Kennedy. Will reserve state attorney's role. In 2019, to stem the exodus of poorly paid state-funded prosecutors and defense attorneys, Florida lawmakers passed a law mandating that starting salary in both offices would be $50,000 a year. But what was hailed as an important step in the pay bump did not include raising the pay for seasoned attorneys. The result is that attorneys hired straight out of law school were usually handling
Lost you, or at least I lost you.
As people, and I'll finish the question, sorry about that. As people who have been there and are not being paid equally, this is for Mr. McCormack. Did you hear the first part, Mr. McCormack?
I heard about the salaries, how the legislature
so I'm asking you, yes. So the question now is, now that you have seasoned attorneys who are handling more difficult cases, being paid less than new attorneys who are coming in with the salary of $50,000, the question is, what are your plans to retain seasoned and experienced lawyers earning the same as a new hire?
Well, I'm pretty certain that we don't have that at our office right now. Saranel might be able to confirm that. But Of course, the more senior attorneys handling the more serious cases would be paid more. When I take over in January, I anticipate that there's going to be a number of senior attorneys that work in the state attorney's office right now that are making extreme amounts of money. They're going to be retiring. So are you talking? You're on mute. Are you talking to me, Ms. Speaks?
Oh, I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm speaking on the side, but I muted myself. Please keep going.
Okay. So
I hear you fine.
Okay, so I'm looking to take advantage out of those surplus salaries that are from the people that are retiring and be able to pay and retain top quality, talented state attorneys. We won't have an imbalance where you described where, you know, new lawyers are getting paid more than seasoned attorneys.
Your minute has elapsed. Sorry, I am multitasking because you guys do have to wrap up after this. Did not hear from Mr. Lewis in a rebuttal. And
Yes,
I think
I'd
the
like
other
to-
person that may have not had two rebuttals was Ms. Murphy. Did you get two rebuttals?
I don't.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Lewis. Go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
Well, let me tell you, when I was a assistant state attorney out of law school, I got the impressive salary of $12,500, and I never thought I had so much money. But living in South Florida today, making $50,000 just isn't going to cut it. We need to have quality people in the state attorney's office. You don't do this job for the money. I had to leave prosecution after 12 years because I started having a family and kids and wives and ex-wives, and I just couldn't afford to stay there. But we need to do everything we can. It's going to be tough with pandemic and everything.
Absolutely, to retain that. All right, Ms. Murphy, you're going to go ahead and wrap us up with this question about difference in pay.
So the problem was the legislature did us a favor raising those salaries, but they didn't authorize what we call the compression money to make that salary increase go fairly and across the board. We were able to find funding and we did raise the salaries incrementally. So we don't have more experienced lawyers making what incoming lawyers are making, but we need even more. And that starts in Tallahassee with fighting for the funding that we should be entitled to pay prosecutors what they're worth. I'm very proud of my record as a supervisor, and I believe that just saying thank you and letting these prosecutors know how valued they are also goes a long way.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I see two more hands, three more hands. However, we're out of time and we want to give you guys each a minute because we're over time. Thank you guys who are watching for hanging in there. This is such an important race. Who will become our next state attorney? We did invite all candidates. As I said before, these are the candidates who agreed to come. Unfortunately, we lost one. I saw him pop in, Mr. Greg Rossman. He's the only Republican in the race. Of course, we invited him. We saw him for a moment, but don't see him there now. He would have the last question. Nonetheless, we are going to go to 1 minute closing by each of you. We want to thank all of you for spending the time here with the public to inform them about your views on the most pressing issues. So we're going to go in reverse order. We're going to start with Mr. Joshua Rydell.
Thank you so much. Listen, we're at a crossroads in Broward County. We need major criminal justice reform to protect minority communities, to protect poor communities, to protect this county, that justice is applied equally. We don't need more prosecutions. We don't need conviction-based judgment calls. We need somebody that understands that we need to protect our community from violent and bad crime, but a majority of that we're prosecuting in the courthouse that I've lived every day doing isn't that. We need to stop criminalizing people and start helping them. We need to stop punishing crime and start trying to fix it. I am committed to this. As the only non-prosecutor in this race, I am committed to changing this county, to being an advocate countywide, to bringing real discussions to real tables and making a legitimate change, not just talking about it with sound bites. I have a track record in my past 5 years of doing that on county-wide issues. And the only way we're going to bring legitimate criminal justice reform to Broward County is to elect me as your next state attorney. I promise you, and I'm committed to that. Josh Rydell, August 18th.
All right, Mr. Rydell. Thank you for that closing statement. The next person up is Mr. Harold Pryor.
First and foremost, thank you, Suzette. Thank you, everyone, for having us. You know, I'm running for state attorney because I truly believe I'm the best person for the job. Growing up, my dad, we had three boys, my brothers and I, and my dad every morning would pray for us. He'd put blessed oil on us and he'd pray that God would cover us and protect us, place a hedge of protection around us. This past Father's Day, I have a 2-year-old son, and I say that prayer with him every night. I worry every day, how am I going to raise my son in this dangerous world? My grandmother would always say, but for God. But for God, I could have been Ahmaud Arbery. But for God, I could have been George Floyd. But for God, I could have been Sister Breonna Taylor. But by the grace of God, I'm here, an experienced attorney who tried criminal cases.
You have 20 seconds.
A prosecutor all the way to serious criminal offenses, and who has served as an in-house counsel for a multi-million-dollar company. I have the experience to run an office of the magnitude of the state attorney's office. I'm ready to initiate ground-level criminal justice reform while not compromising the safety of our communities. Join me in this movement. My name is Harold Pryor. Let's make history. Visit us at haroldpryor.com. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Your time is up, Mr. Pryor. Thank you. Our next candidate up is Ms. Saranel Murphy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Saranel Murphy, and with 24 years as a prosecutor, I have the knowledge and experience needed. Knowledge is power. I am the candidate that can be an architect for positive change immediately. I know what's working. I know what needs improvement. How do you know? How can you trust me? Look at my record in the areas I've worked in that were under my control. I've created innovative diversionary programs. I've leveled the playing field. I continue to teach proper prosecutorial discretion. I've spoken with our youth in schools over my time as a prosecutor, and I've been asked by law enforcement to teach them in the area of domestic violence. I believe that the community partnerships I've built over the years will allow me to be the candidate to bring all the stakeholders to the table for informative and intelligent conversation about the changes we will need moving forward. To effect meaningful change, we must seek input from our diverse community that we serve. I intend to do that. I see you, I always have, and I'm listening. I have the experience, the proven leadership skills, and the compassion to take this office into its next chapter. I'm asking for your vote on August 18th. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Ms. Murphy. We want to go next now to Mr. Justin McCormack.
Thank you. Our country is going through a very tough time right now where Americans have lost trust in law enforcement. I hope to rebuild that trust between the community and keep law enforcement accountable. I'm going to ensure that that happens by providing additional resources to our investigators and our attorneys so they can build a strong case, take a case to trial, and hold police officers accountable with convictions when necessary. I also plan to seek justice for victims and defendants and do everything possible to get people out of the criminal justice system and back into mainstream society. We could do that by not prosecuting certain offenses, not holding people in jail because they can't afford bail, helping more people get mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment, education, and job training. I want to create a culture in the state attorney's office where we help victims become whole and offenders become rehabilitated for the benefit of everyone. Thank you, Justin McCormack.
That is your time. Thank you, Mr. McCormack. We're going to go next to Mr. Jim Lewis.
Well, again, thanks everybody for coming out. This is, I think, the 20th or the 21st of these that we've done. And I just want to say Broward County's been so good to me and my family. I love being a prosecutor here and even more being a criminal defense attorney for the last 28 years. I've raised 4 kids and now I have a new grandbaby here. And what I want for them is what I have, and that is a community that takes care of itself, who cares about the least of us, who makes sure that innocent people don't go to jail, and that makes sure that good, hardworking people are protected from the criminal element that would seek to take what is not rightfully theirs. We've got to do something about this epidemic of our kids dying from heroin and fentanyl. Please look at Jim Lewis, look at my credentials, look at my commitment to step up, to put these drug dealers in jail where they should be, and protect all of us so that we can walk our streets, continue to walk our streets feeling safe and secure. Thank you. I'm Jim Lewis. And again, thank you for the opportunity to come out tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Your time. Thank you very much. We're going to go next to Mr. Joe Kimmuck.
Thank you, Suzette. For the past several weeks, our country is finally having an awakening. And I spent a lot of time marching with protesters in Fort Lauderdale. And they're not protesting because prosecutors aren't getting paid enough or getting along enough with police officers. They're screaming in pain because they're being killed on our streets. They're talking about a mass incarceration system that has 2.3 million people locked up. We have more black men in prison or probation or parole than we had black men enslaved in 1850. They're talking about a cash bail system that locks people up because they can't afford to bail out. They're talking about mandatory minimums and stop and frisk and pretextual vehicle stops. They're talking about their kids being locked up and shuffled through a broken juvenile justice system that leaves them abused and neglected and more traumatized. And we should listen to them. There's been a lot of talk about criminal justice reform. I don't use that word specifically because I do not believe you can reform an inherently immoral system. We need to dismantle the whole thing.
All righty. Thank you very much, Mr. Joe Kimmock. And we're going to go next to Ms. Teresa Fanning Williams.
First, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the women of AKA tonight. I would be extremely honored if you gave me your vote to be the first female state attorney in the history of Broward County. Tonight, you know what? You are making a really tough decision. There are 8 candidates in this race. And you know what? We all pretty much are saying a lot of the same things. But
You're not going to be in the screen. You could come right up. Just close, come right like behind me more.
One of the things that's really up for grabs is the entire culture of our courthouse. We have a new criminal justice system. Please don't be cavalier about that Democratic label. You have a Republican candidate in this race with 25 years of experience who is a private attorney for police officers. We're at risk of going backwards. The wrong candidate winning this primary can be disastrous. How do you know who to vote for? I'm the only candidate in this race who has significant administrative experience as a prosecutor. I got in my car and drove an hour every single day because I refused to accept the courthouse culture that was present in Broward County. I have been the assistant chief. I've been the chief of the career criminal robbery unit. I supervised over 200 lawyers. I taught them discretion for 5 years, created a statistical database. I am ready. And I'm ready for the criminal justice reform. Teresa.
All right, Ms. Williams, Fanning Williams, thank you. I give you a few extra seconds. I apologize for not having muted myself there. And last, but certainly not least, is Mr. David Kennedy.
Broward County deserves a champion in policy, legislation, and the law. With 15 years of experience coming from DC when I worked in the Obama administration, also the US Senate, been in Tallahassee, in the Florida Supreme Court, and also Office of Policy and Budget, down here to being a prosecutor currently in the state attorney's office. And what I can tell you is that there's injustice in the criminal justice system. I'll say that again. There's injustice in the criminal justice system. And as W.E.B. Du Bois said, the 20th century was, the major issue was race. In the 21st century, the issue is the criminal justice system. We must fix this for our next generation. You need someone with experience. I have that experience within the office and also outside the office. I'm asking for your vote. Please visit me at davidkennedy.com or go to any of my social media at Vote Kennedy. It's right here. Been here all day. Security, justice, economy. I look forward to interacting with you in the future. Thank you.
All righty, guys, you guys have been awesome. We know it's late. We know you're troopers. You have families, you have lives. But thank you for your commitment to making sure that the public hears from you, sees you, and understands where you stand on issues. We want to thank again Mr. David Kennedy for joining us, Ms. Teresa Fanning Williams, Mr. Joe Kimmock, Mr. Jim Lewis, Mr. Justin McCormack, Ms. Sarah Nell Murphy, Mr. Harold Pryor, and Mr. Joshua Rydell. Your presence here has made this a success, and we're grateful. Good luck to each of you in the primary. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, well, we've gone over time. Folks watching at home, we thank you for kind of hanging in there with us. Again, please do like, comment, and share. On our social media, we're going to go over early voting dates. Remember, you can register to vote at registertovoteflorida.gov. Registertovoteflorida.gov. Remember, you can also order your ballot now by mail. Order your ballot now by mail. www.broward.soe, which is supervisor of election, soe.org. Call 954-357-7050. 954-357-7050. Our first chance to vote in Florida comes August 18th. So we need you guys to come out. The primary election is where your voice will be heard. This year is super important. So make sure no matter what, you come out for your primary election. We want to mention real quick, the census is still happening. If you have not filled out your census form, be sure to fill out your census form, guys. It's the best way to ensure that federal funding gets to the people who need it. Finally, join us this Thursday for another Connect, Elect, and elect. It's going to be the circuit and county judges as well as the supervisors of election. We want to thank again the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated for bringing this forum to you, our viewers and voters and friends. We thank you so much for watching. I'm Suzette Speaks, and we're going to sign off, and we hope to see you same time Thursday, June 25th. Thank you for watching Connect and Elect.